In the beginning, there was nothing. An infinite void personified with the name chaos. Oh wait, that's too far back. So Leto is the tightness of motherhood, childbirth, and modesty. She, much in character for a deity of childbirth, was about to give birth. She wandered through the lands, but all rejected her out of fear because her father was no other than Zeus himself. Not her father, the father of the baby. Yeah. They feared Hera would punish them, so the Titan was turned away over and over again, until she came across the island of Delos. Delos? Delos. I think it's Delos. The island of Delos, for she swore on the river Styx her child would bring them fame and prosperity. Hera tried to prevent the birth by preventing her daughter Eileithyia. I think it's Eileithyia. Yeah. By preventing her daughter Eileithyia, another goddess of childbirth, from aiding Leto in delivery. Iris, goddess of rainbows, then offered her a necklace of amber, which persuaded Eileithyia to go against her mother's wishes and step foot onto the island, allowing Apollo to leap forth from his mother's womb. Now, reading further, the story kind of stops making sense from there. After the newborn Apollo is washed and fed, he says something along the lines of, "This food good as shit. I'm gonna be the master of the lyre and the archery." Yeah. Or something along the lines of that. He then begins to walk, which causes the island to be filled with gold. It just shows that the gods play by their own rules and my mortal brain cannot make sense of it. Because that doesn't make sense to me at all. But yeah, that's pretty much Apollo's origins, at least according to Homer. There's like 5 different versions of it. You see, Apollo meant different things to different people, considering he had so many different aspects. He's known as the god of archery, music, dance, truth, prophecy, healing, diseases, the sun, light, and poetry. Where the majority of the Hellenic pantheon resides over 1 or 2 domains, Apollo said, yeah, I'll take the rest of that, thank you very much. This also led him to having some pretty cool titles over the ages, such as Apollo, the SoundCloud rapper of healing light, Apollo Lexicakis, and Apollo Pythios. I made one of those up, but I guess I'll never bet which one. Once you get into the translations of these names, you really start to get the picture of what Apollo really meant as a god. Alexikakis, Acestor, and Acacius all roughly meant the same thing, averter of evil. Another popular epithet was Agaletes, which meant the radiant god, and Pythios, which is derived from Pytho, which is an ancient name of Delphi. Delphi? I'm gonna call it Delphi. I know what I'm talking about. I just don't know how to pronounce what I'm talking about. Oh yes, Delphi. You see, Delphi is this place in Greece where a really famous temple for Apollo is located. At this temple, local peasants would occasionally appoint someone to play the role of Pythia. Either that, which was a high priestess of Apollo, or a Sibyl, a Hellenic oracle. They both did the same thing, but they mean different things, if that makes sense. Like, the titles are not the same at all, but in practice they would serve as the oracle of Delphi and would sit in the temple on a tripod in front of a chasm. It was said that when Apollo neighed on Python, killing it instantly from cringe, its body fell into the opening in the earth, causing fumes to rise up out of it from its decomposing body. This basically made the Oracle of Delphi fall into a trance from which Apollo would be able to possess her and she would start speaking prophecies. They couldn't do this in the winter though, because that's when Apollo would be chilling with the Hyperboreans, leaving Dionysus in charge of the temple. Moving on, I want to talk about Apollo's Kourotrophos aspects. That may sound like a big and complicated word, but all it really means is that the deity is said to protect children in some aspect or another. Apollo is connected to health, and the education of young children. Young boys specifically will let their hair grow out as children and then cut it and offer it to Apollo sometime between the ages of 18 and 20. Apollo himself, though, is depicted with long hair to symbolize eternal youth. He is known as the most beautiful of the gods, and his form is said to be the ideal body for any young man. Because of this and many other reasons, he became one of Zeus's favorite children. As Athena was the principal goddess of Athens, Apollo was the principal god of Sparta. They were both given ample power and important duties to fulfill. I did notice though, while researching this video, that while they both had seemingly equal roles to play as protectors of cities and youth and all that stuff, Apollo seems just a little bit taller than Athena, as some sources claim he's the most influential god. He's the center of it all. He is the Greek god. Even we're not even halfway through this video. You see, another thing that stood out to me is rather than Artemis being his female counterpart, I saw Hecate as being his counterpart. While yes, Artemis and Hecate are both counterparts to him, Hecate just seemed more prominent as such because of how large of a role his oracular aspects plays in how people worship him. Apollo is the all-seeing deity of the streets, of the daylight, if you will, while Hecate is the all-seeing deity of the darkness. If Hecate is the gatekeeper, then Apollo Aegeus is the doorkeeper. Apollo's domain is prophetic light of heaven, and Hecate's domain is the prophetic powers of night and Chthonian darkness. At first it caught me off guard, but when you really think about it, it makes sense. Hecate is just Apollo, but chthonic, at least in the seeing the future aspect of it. Going back to Artemis, she is known as the protector of young girls, as much as Apollo is to young boys. She is often associated with Selene, the moon, and Apollo is associated with Helios, the sun. The evidence that Artemis is his counterpart more so surrounded around his Kourotrophos aspects, in the sense that I don't even know what I was trying to say there, that Artemis was supposed to represent everything that Apollo meant to young boys, but to young girls. Aside from that, they didn't actually have much in common, despite being literally twins. Like, in the myths and stuff, they're seen together a lot because they're twins, but when you actually go into what they represent, they aren't that similar. Now you'd think after talking about all that, this video will be over, but we haven't even gotten into the messy stuff. And when I say messy stuff, I mean Hyperborea. This is a place no one can seem to agree on anything about. Some people say it's a real place, some people say it's completely fictional. On top of that, the people who think it's a real place can't seem to agree on what modern day location it could have been considered Hyperborea. But for the sake of this video, it's just a beautiful land of eternal spring. Let's look into what Hyperborea meant to Apollo. For lack of a better explanation, this was basically his land. Not in the sense of he created it, but in the sense that it was venerating Apollo in several ways. The god liked the Hyperboreans so much that he would spend every winter with them, which is said to be part of what causes the winter to be so cold. Hyperborea was also said to be Leto's birthplace, so that was part of his reasoning for making it his winter home. Apollo may seem like all sunshine, but many gods, that's only when you're on his good side. Python, for example, is described as a terrifying chthonic female draken, and was most certainly a fearsome monster, considering she, by many sources, is considered to be the nurse of the horrifying Typhon, a being so powerful at one point it threatened Zeus's throne. Notice my use of the word was, because with a singular arrow, Apollo sent the creature a one-way ticket to Hades. Given he did get exiled from Olympus for doing so, but after falling in love with some dude named Admetus, I think it's Admetus, he was allowed back eventually. Eventually. It wasn't because he fell in love with Epithets, but it was after that happened. So yeah, you'll come to catch on that he does that a lot, both getting punished by Zeus and falling in love with people. Oh, and don't even get me started on the Trojan War or any of the contests. Many people tried to challenge Apollo's skills, but not only did none of them succeed, but it just seemed like the god was once again handing out one-way tickets to Hades, one after the other. And the only one who didn't die, I think, was Pan. And that's only because he was accepted defeat and was a deity himself, being the god of the wild. There was a couple of more important and well-known stories, like the beloved Hyacinthus, Heracles again, this time being indirectly sent to free Prometheus, and his son Asclepius, god of healing. But this video is getting ridiculously long, so I think this is where I'm going to call it for this video. I feel like overall, Apollo being so important and powerful is definitely the son of the king of the gods. And if you want to see me go on a little tangent as to why people aren't worshiping Zeus, then click on this video right here. I hope I'm pointing in the right direction. It's really hard to actually space this out.